Okay, hello and welcome to today's class for CS303 Operating Systems. This is chapter number 6, lecture number 3. So once again, welcome to today's class on CS303 Operating System. This is chapter number 6, lecture number 3. So as you know, chapter 6 is on synchronization. So main issue that we are discussing here is the critical section problem. So what exactly is this critical section problem? This arises when we have multiple processes or threads trying to simultaneously access a piece of shared memory, shared data, shared variable. And what happens is, if we do not do proper synchronization, then our system lands up in an incorrect state. So we may get an incorrect answer, or some processes. So that incorrect answer we saw in that counter example for the producer-consumer problem. In other cases, we may see a process's data being wiped out. So we saw that in the shared printer problem that we discussed earlier. So essentially, bad things can happen if we allow unsynchronized access to shared data by multiple processes or threads executing concurrently. Okay. So as such, it's quite difficult to determine when a process will, or when a process or thread will execute and for how long it will execute. So it's quite hard to determine that. It happens at runtime by the scheduler, seeing how the system is behaving. So if you run the same processes multiple times, you're likely to get the sequence in which they run might be different. As we saw in chapter 3 when we were parent and child were forking. Right, so there was a fork and then a parent and child was created, and then both of those processes were just running in a long loop, right? Just printing some basic value. So there we saw every time we ran the program, the parent and child, the execution sequence was different. So maybe first parent runs for 10 milliseconds, then child runs for 5 milliseconds, then parent for 2 milliseconds. Second time we run it, maybe parent runs not for 10 milliseconds but for 2 milliseconds, then child. So it's all dynamic. Every time you run it, the execution sequence will be different. So because of that, we have to be quite careful. When we we have to be careful to synchronize, because like in that shared printer problem, it may so happen that while a process is updating that shared array, a context switch happens and it the CPU may be taken away from it. Now again, that may or may not happen. If the context switch happens, the chance of the incorrect operation is increased. If the context switch does not happen at that time, or better still, if the process keeps on executing and then only once it finishes, CPU is given to the other one, then we don't have any issue. But again, we cannot say for sure the sequence of execution and for how long each process will execute. So therefore we do need synchronization is needed, so that we don't have data in incorrect state, incorrect values, or one process's data gets wiped out. We don't want those kind of scenarios. Okay. So all what this chapter is about is discussing various approaches through which we can do this synchronization. And therefore, we can avoid these race conditions, and therefore our system is in a correct state. The values calculated are proper, and each process executes properly without getting their data wiped out. Okay, so now I am on slide 2. So the first topic for today's lecture is Peterson's solution. So in the last lecture we had defined the critical section problem, right? And we had even discussed the solution to this problem, right? So essentially, what is this critical section problem, right? So just to recap, consider a system of n processes p0 to pn minus 1. They could also be threads. Each process has a segment of code called a critical section. What happens in that critical section, in that segment of code, in which the process may be accessing and updating data that is shared with at least one other process. Okay, so that you may have a shared variable among two processes, among three, among four, any number, but it has to be shared, that data has to be shared among more than one process. Okay, so the important feature of the system is when one process is executing in its critical section, no other process is allowed to execute in its critical section. That is, no two processes are executing in their critical sections at the same time. Okay, so the critical section problem is to design a protocol that the processes can use to synchronize their activity so as to cooperatively share the data. Right? So we know that if processes are sharing data, processes are threads, each process will have within its code some statements which are accessing and updating that shared data. So that section is called the critical section, and the idea is when one process is updating its critical section, other processes they may not update, or they may not even enter their critical section. Okay, so only one process can be in its critical section at a time. So that's what we had discussed, and we had looked at a couple of conditions, three conditions to be precise, that any solution to the critical section problem must satisfy. One was, of course, the obvious one, mutual exclusion. If process Pi is executing in its critical section, then no other processes can be executing in the critical sections. Okay, so it's easy to see how this will solve the problem. So here we're just ensuring that modification of the shared variables is sequential, only one process at a time. Okay, so in the case of that producer, if the producer is in its critical section, the consumer has to wait. So producer will do count plus plus, and then it finishes, and then the consumer can enter and do minus. Or if the consumer is in its critical section, producer has to wait. Similarly, for that shared printer example, if a process is modifying that shared array, right, then the other process cannot do that. It has to wait till the first process is done modifying that shared array. Right. So therefore, we will avoid the critical section problem, because the first process will come, it will see the next available value for the shared printer array, it will put its file there, then it will get out of the critical section, then the other process will come, it will see the next one, it will put there, and therefore we don't have any issues in which one process wipes the other. Okay, so one was mutual exclusion, only one process at a time. Right. The other is progress, right? So if no process is executing in its critical section and some processes wish to enter the critical sections, then only those processes that are not executing in the remainder section can participate in deciding which will enter its critical section next. And the selection cannot be postponed indefinitely. So if a process has just exited its critical section, which means it will be in its remainder section, so then that process cannot be a part, or it cannot be allowed to enter its critical section for some time, right? So the processes which have not entered the critical section for a while, they obviously get higher priority. Yeah, that's what we're saying. And third is bounded waiting. So there exists a bound, a limit on the number of times that other processes are allowed to enter the critical section after a process has made a request to enter its critical section and before that request is granted. So let's say I make a request at time t1, and by time t2 I get access to the critical section. Okay. So this gap that I have, t2 minus t1, there has to be some bound on that. So 3 conditions: mutual exclusion, progress, and bounded waiting. Okay. So now that we know about we have revised the critical section problem and its solution, let's look at the first example here, Peterson's solution. Slide 2. So this is one of the earliest solutions to the critical section problem. So this one is restricted to the case of 2 processes that alternate execution between their critical and remainder sections. So we have 2 processes or 2 threads which will which are executing concurrently, right, at the same time, right. So they are both alternating between the critical and remainder sections. So process 1 will come, entry section, ask for the permission to be granted entry into the critical section, and then it will get out, go to the remainder section, and then again entry critical remainder, so on. So you can say, in other words, it's just executing sort of in a loop again and again, right. And likewise is the scenario with process 2, and both are executing concurrently. So because they are executing concurrently, and they also have some shared data. Okay. So let's say these processes are Pi and Pj. Okay. Now, so this is a software-based solution, and this solution requires that 2 processes share the following data items. 2 data items that Pi and Pj will share: int turn, right, an integer called turn, and an array of size 2 of data type boolean, which means, so boolean means how many values are permitted for one boolean. So 2, it's binary, 0, 1, true, false. So 2 data items which are shared by both Pi and Pj: int turn and boolean flag 2. Okay. So the variable turn indicates whose turn it is to enter its critical section. Okay. So this can be set to 2 values, I and j. So for example, if turn is equal to I, right, then Pi is allowed to execute in its critical section. If turn is equal to j, then Pj is allowed to execute its critical section. Okay. So in other words, you can say that if a process, whether it's Pi or Pj, wishes to enter its critical section, it will declare its intention by setting the turn value to I or j. Okay, so both Pi and Pj can do that. The flag array is used to indicate if a process is ready to enter its critical section. Oh well, I think I sort of mistook. So the intention will be declared using flag, and turn will actually decide which process gets to enter. So once again, I'll rephrase. If a process, whether it's Pi or Pj, wishes to enter its critical section, it will set its flag value as true. So if Pi is ready to enter its critical section, flag I is true. If Pj is ready to enter its critical section, flag j is true. Okay, so the intention is declared by setting the appropriate flag value to true. Okay. And so that is declaring of intention. So well, you may have the intention, but that doesn't guarantee entry into the critical section. So the entry to the critical section will be determined from the value of the turn variable. So intention is declared using flag, but actually which one of those two gets to enter it in the critical section, in its critical section, this is determined by the value of turn. Okay, so both Pi and Pj may have flag true, but the actual value of turn will determine who enters. So note, it's a single variable, so at a given point of time it can be either I or j, not both. So whatever its value is, whatever the value of turn is, will determine who is actually allowed to execute or enter into the critical section. Enter and then execute. Okay. Okay, now I am on slide 3, and now we talk about this Peterson solution. So we just discussed that there are two shared variables. So it's a software solution. So those variables are flag and turn. So flag is an array, a boolean array of size 2, and you can set flag I and flag j as true or false. A value of false implies the process does not wish to enter the critical section, and a value of true implies the process wishes to enter its critical section. So it declares its intention using the flag variable. And another variable is turn. So turn will actually determine which process will get to enter the critical section, because note that you can have many scenarios. In one scenario, neither process wants to enter its critical section. Another scenario, process I wants to enter, process J does not. Third scenario, process J wants to enter, process I does not. Fourth scenario, both processes I and J want to enter. So that is the one we have to watch out for. There we can have synchronization issues. So based on that, they set the flag as true, and but it's eventually the turn which will decide which process gets to enter its critical section. So we're saying if both processes try to enter at roughly the same time, only one of the assignments will last, the other will occur but will be overridden immediately. Hence, at any point of time, turn is I or J but not both. Okay, so once again, to enter its critical section, Pi first sets flag I is true and then sets turn is equal to J, thereby stating if the other process Pj wishes to enter its critical section, it may do so. So we'll soon see the code, but eventually what will happen is for both processes they will have their pieces of code. First line of code will be flag is equal to true. So for Pi, flag I is equal to true, for Pj, flag J is equal to true, right? And then eventually the value of turn will decide who enters. So it's a single value, so at any point of time it will contain either I or J but not both. Okay, either I or J but not both. Okay. So the one process whose value is there at the end, it will get to enter. Eventual value of turn decides which process will get to enter its critical section. Okay. So if turn is J and flag J is true, Pi cannot enter its critical section as Pj is in it. So again, all of this, let us look at the code first, then we can understand. Okay. So now I am on slide 4. So this is the algorithm for process Pi. So we'll have a similar algorithm for Pj as well, and then we'll put both of them side by side to analyze it. So for Pi, what we are doing is, first we have the entry section, right? So in the entry section we have two statements. Flag I is equal to true, which means that now Pi will declare its intention to enter its critical section, and then turn is equal to J. So both processes will be nice to each other and they will give the turn to the other process. So what this process Pi is saying is, with flag I equal to true, that yes, I am declaring my intention to enter the critical section, and then next it will set turn equal to J, stating that if for Pj flag J is equal to true, then it can go ahead and enter its critical section. Okay. So once again we declare our intention to enter the critical section, setting flag as true. Okay, and then we give the turn to the other process. That is the entry section. Now for critical section, what check do we make? While flag J and turn equal to J. So if flag J is true and if it's J's turn, then J should enter its critical section, right? So then what will Pi do? It will just wait. So as long as this while condition is true, which means flag J is true and turn is equal to J, this process Pi will just wait at this while outside its critical section. Okay. and then after it exits its critical section, it will set flag I equal to false, which is just a fairness thing. What it's saying is, what PI is saying is, since I have just exited or gotten out of my critical section, let me set my flag as false, right, so that other processes whose flags are true, they can enter. Okay, because remember that we declare our intention by setting flag as true. So once a process exits or gets out of its critical section, it sets its flag as false, therefore just being nice so that the other process can enter, and then remainder section and then true. Okay, so likewise we have code for PJ, and then we'll see both of those codes side by side. Okay, so here I am on slide 5 now. This is the algorithm for PJ. It's a sort of a mirror image of the other one. So flag J is true, PJ declares its intention to enter its critical section, and it's being nice and giving turn to the other process by setting turn is equal to I. So note that the turn value of turn decides which process enters its critical section. If turn is I, PI enters. If turn is J, PJ enters. Only one at a time. So once again, while flag I and turn is I. So likewise, if flag I is true and turn is equal to I, then PJ waits. Eventually it will get out of waiting, it will enter its critical section, and once it gets out, flag J will be false again. On account of fairness, it sets its own flag as false so that it gives the other process a chance to enter the critical section if the other process wishes to do so. Then remainder and then while true. So what's happening is keeps on executing this code starting from top to bottom. You can say probably for a very long time both PI and PJ are executing this same code. Now important thing here is we cannot say anything about the rate of execution. So perhaps PI goes very fast, or it's given the CPU for a long time, so it executes completely and then PJ executes, so it's sort of sequential, or first PJ executes and then after it executes PI executes, again sequential. So in those cases we don't have a problem of critical section. The scenario in which we have to be careful about the critical section problem is when both of them wish to enter at the same time. So there again the rate at which they are executing statements can vary. If both are executing at the same time, perhaps PI is going faster. It's executing, let's say, 2 lines of code per unit time. PJ is executing only 1 line of code per unit time. So we can make no guarantee about the rate of execution or speed of execution for various processes. Both may be fast, one may be slow, one may be fast, both may be slow. Alright. So our solution has to hold for all the cases. Okay. Okay, now I am on slide number 6, and here we see on the left we have, just give me 1 second. Yeah, so on the left we have the Peterson solution for both PI and PJ, right? So I've just written the code for both PI and PJ, and then we discuss these cases. Ultimately what we have to see is whether the solution satisfies all the requirements, right, for the critical section problem. So is mutual exclusion guaranteed? The progress condition guaranteed? Is the bounded waiting guaranteed? Okay. So we have two processes, PI and PJ, executing for a very long time, and as you can see the first code, and so both the processes are sort of mirror images of each other, and as you can see In the first statement, both processes indicate their willingness to enter their respective critical section. So here for critical section we have just written CS. What will actually happen there is some shared variable will be modified. So we are not looking into that right now, we will look into that later, but here we just say CS for critical section, and then there is a remainder section. So both processes, flag I, flag J is true, and then what happens is both processes play nice and they give the turn to the other one. So what that means is for Pi it sets turn equal to J, and for Pj it sets turn equal to I. Now for a process to enter its critical section, to be able to get access to enter inside its critical section, we have two conditions have to be met. One is the flag value has to be true, so flag I or flag J, they have to be true. Other thing is that process has to have the turn value assigned to it. So either turn is I or turn is J. So that at once tells us that at any point of time we can have only one process inside its critical section. Why? How can we claim that? We can claim that because the value of turn is either I or J, it's not both. So flag definitely could be true, flag I and flag J could both be true at the same time, but at a particular time instance the value of turn, it could be either I or J, it could not be both, and it is the value of turn which determines which process will enter its critical section. So that itself gives us a hint that we will have mutual exclusion. So now what process Pi is doing is it's seeing whether flag J is true and whether turn is equal to J. So if both are true, obviously Pj is in its critical section and this process will wait right here. And eventually you can see what's happening in Pj is once Pj gets out of its critical section, what's the first thing it does? So once Pj gets out of its critical section, first thing it does is sets flag J is false. So if Pi was waiting in its while condition, then by setting flag J is false, Pi will be able to enter its critical section. So imagine this scenario, Pj is in its critical section and Pi is waiting on the while loop. Then so as long as Pj is in its critical section, Pi has to wait in its while loop, and as soon as Pj gets out of its critical section, first thing it does is sets flag J equal to false. So the first part of that while condition for Pi becomes false and it enters its critical section. Now there is a fairness aspect we are looking at. Similar thing happens for Pj. If Pj is waiting for Pi, and when will Pi be in its critical section? When flag I is true and turn is equal to I. So flag I is true and turn is equal to I, Pj will wait, and then as soon as Pi gets out of its critical section, first thing it does is sets flag I equal to false. So then the Pj which was waiting in its while loop, it can now enter its critical section because flag I will become false. So the whole while thing becomes false, it's an AND connector and Pj can enter. Okay, and then remainder section. So the crux of the code is for a particular process declare its intention by setting its flag as true, and then assign the turn value to the other process, be nice, and then if the other process is in its critical section, wait till it gets out, and as soon as the other process gets out of its critical section, it will set its flag as false, and then the original process which was waiting in its while can enter its critical section, and then set flag equal to false. So once I gets out, it sets flag I equal to false. When J gets out, it sets flag J equal to false. Then remainder section, and then again go back to the top of the code. So this is how things happen. So now let's look at some cases. So what we need to do is first we need to let's look at the mutual exclusion property. So what this simply states is at any particular point in time t, both processes cannot be in their critical section. Either one of them can, either Pi or Pj, and of course it's possible that neither of them is. That's always possible. But both of them cannot be in their critical section at the same time. That's what we are saying. Yeah, so that will ensure the mutual exclusion property, which further will ensure that our synchronization is strong and successful. Okay. So let's look at a couple of scenarios. Scenario 1, only Pi runs. So both of them can execute, both are processes or threads. So scenario 1, only Pi runs. Pj doesn't run at all. So what happens? Flag I is true, turn is j, goes to the while. So what will happen? Will it wait or will it bypass? Will it enter the critical section? Only Pi is running. So what about flag j? Right? What about flag j? Right? So once again, it depends on what our initial values are. So let's say our initial value is flag j. So for flag I and flag j, both are false. Okay. So if both are initially false, then when Pi is executing, flag j will be false. So immediately, because Pj is not running at all, so flag j will be false, and Pi enters its critical section, no problem, gets out, sets its own flag as false, and gets out. So the operation is fine. Pi sets flag I is true, sets turn as j, evaluates a while, flag j is false, gets into the critical section, sets its own flag as false, gets into remainder, end of execution. So no problem. If only Pi runs, no problem. Pj again same, it's a mirror image, similar logic holds. Now only Pj runs. So flag j is true, of course, turn is equal to I. Right. So now while flag I will be false, Pi is not running at all. So it enters its critical section, gets out, sets flag j as false, remainder section gets out. So what we can see here is when we have sort of sequential execution or only one of them is running, there are no issues. Right? By no issues, what do we mean? We mean that as such the operation is correct, which means they will be able to enter the critical section, either Pi or Pj, case 1 or case 2. They both will be able to enter the critical section. Both will be able to change the common data. Both will be able to get out. So case 1 and case 2 are quite clear, almost trivial. More interesting is case 3. So now what happens if Pi and Pj both run at the same time? Okay, both Pi and Pj were both running at the same time. So mutual exclusion property. So now we have to show that at any point of time only one can be in its critical section. Okay. So both are running, right? Roughly the same time, roughly the same speed. Both will set flag I and flag j as true. Now both try to execute turn. So maybe Pi runs first, it sets turn j, then Pj runs, it sets turn I. Either way, value of turn will be I or j. So which means can both of them be in their critical section at the same time, both Pi and Pj? Answer is no. Both Pi and Pj cannot be in the critical section at the same time because the value of turn can be either I or j, not both. So depending on, so flag can be true for both definitely, but as far as turn is concerned, it can be either I or j, not both. So whichever is the value of turn, that process gets to enter the critical section. So one scenario, both of them do flag true, so flag I is true, flag j is true, then turn is equal to j, and then immediately, very quickly, turn is equal to I. So then naturally, which process gets to enter the critical section? So whatever was the last value of turn, which is I. So Pi will be in this critical section, and Pj, it will wait. So Pi, why? Because flag j is true, but turn is j will be false, because turn was just set as I. So Pi will be able to enter the critical section, and for Pj, flag I is true, turn is I, it will wait there. Other scenario, both of them set their flags at this roughly the same time, then turn is equal to I is executed, and then immediately turn is equal to j is executed. In that case, it's a reverse. Pj will get to enter the critical section. Okay, right? Flag I will be true, but turn will be j. So for Pj, turn is I is false, but so Pj will get to enter the critical section. Pi will wait. So depending on who was the last to write the value, it was the last process to write the value, that process will be in the critical section, not both of them. So we can safely say at any point of time, both processes can never be in their critical section. Turn is I or j, it's not both. Okay. So if turn is I, Pj waits, if turn is j, Pi waits. Now this was the case when both are running at roughly the same speed. What if Pi and Pj run at different speeds? Will mutual exclusion be preserved? So we can look at that situation as well. Let's say Pj runs very fast. So it sets flag j is true, sets turn as I, and now it's evaluating while. Right? So Pj is at the while, it's not done evaluating, and then Pi runs quickly, flag I is true, and it's at turn equal to j. So now Pj is at while, Pi is at turn equal to j. Right? So any of them can go first, right? Depends. So once again, Pj is in its while, Pi is in turn equal to j. So if the while runs first, then flag I is true, it is, turn equal to I, it is, so Pj will wait there. And now what happens is turn is equal to j executes, and now Pj will get out of the while because now value of turn is j, so that while part is false, and naturally now Pj gets in and Pi waits. So you can see that even if they are running at different speeds, the mutual exclusion property will hold. If Pj is running so fast that it evaluates a while very quickly, and Pi is still at the flag I is true, even then flag I for Pj is true, and turn is equal to I, it will wait. Okay. So if Pj is fast, Pi is very slow, then Pj will just wait at the while loop. Of course, if Pj is extremely fast and Pi is extremely slow, then if Pj evaluates the while even before Pi could set it, the flag I is true, then of course Pj will enter. So you can do this test, try to see various speeds. So what we are saying is, even if Pi and Pj run at different speeds, the mutual exclusion will still be preserved. Only one at a time will be in their critical section. Okay, hope it's clear. Okay, now I am on slide 7. So in the last slide we saw how we can ensure mutual exclusion among Pi and Pj. Two more conditions are left which we need to evaluate: progress and bounded waiting. So just to revise them, do a recap. What does the progress condition state? It states that processes in remainder section cannot block or starve processes waiting to enter the critical section. Need to pick up only from such waiting processes. So what we are saying is, if a process has wishes to enter its critical section, of course it will make a request, and then if one of two things will happen. If no other process is in its critical section, the process that made the request will immediately be granted access to its critical section. No problem there. Other scenario is if there are other processes in the critical sections, then the one which just made a request, it has to wait for some time, and then eventually it will get access to the critical section, right? So what we are saying is, we in order to ensure fairness or progress, we are saying that processes in the remainder section cannot block or starve processes waiting to enter the critical section. So this makes sense, because if a process is in its remainder section, then it means it has just gotten out of its critical section. So therefore it should give a chance to the other processes. Which are those processes? Which are waiting at the entry point of the critical section. So processes in remainder section cannot block or starve processes waiting to enter the critical section. Here we have only two processes. So what this condition amounts to over here is, if Pj is in its remainder section, it cannot block or starve Pi if Pi is waiting to enter its critical section. Okay. Likewise, similar holds for the other side as well. If Pi is in its remainder section, then it cannot block or starve Pj if Pj is waiting to enter its critical section. Right. So that's what we are saying. So are we ensuring that? Well, yes. If you look at the first statement, that a process executes after exiting its critical section, it sets its own flag as false. Okay. So the only way, what is the only way that a process Pi can wait to enter its critical section? Only at the while loop. If flag j is true and turn equal to j. So it keeps on waiting there. Now what we are saying is, so it's Pi is waiting on Pj, we say that, and further, once Pj gets out of its critical section, it should give Pi should get entry into its critical section, right, immediately. So which we see is happening because Pi is waiting at the while, right? Flag j is true and turn is j, and then eventually, as soon as Pj gets out of its critical section, it sets flag j is false, and immediately Pi gets entry, right? Other way, argument also holds. If Pj is waiting for Pi, the only way it can wait is in the while loop, because flag I is true and turn is equal to I. So we say Pj is waiting on Pi, Pj waiting on Pi, and then as soon as Pi gets out of its critical section, it sets flag I is false, and then Pj immediately gets access to its critical section. So we can easily see here that a process which is in its remainder section, either Pi or Pj, does not block or starve a process which is waiting to enter its critical section. So progress is ensured. And the other thing we are seeing is bounded waiting, which means that when a process makes a request to enter its critical section, right, let that time be t1 and let t2 be the time at which its request is granted. So t2 minus t1 is what? The time that the process is waiting to enter its critical section. So that waiting has to be bounded. So there has to be, how do we ensure that? There has to be a limit on the number of other processes that can enter their critical section while this particular process is waiting from T1 to T2. So while process X is waiting from T1 to T2, there exists a bound on the number of other processes besides X which have got an entry into the critical sections. So that number should not be too high. So bound on the waiting time. So we can easily see here that that does exist. what is the maximum that Pi has? So if Pi is waiting to enter the critical section, right? What is the maximum Pi has to wait? It has to wait maximum. The maximum time it has to wait is the time it takes Pj to get out of its critical section. So there are only two processes. So Pi is waiting means that Pj is in its critical section. Otherwise it would not have to wait. If Pj was not in its critical section, Pi would have gained entry into its critical section. So the only way that Pi can wait in order to gain entry to its critical section is when Pj is already in its critical section. And now Pi is waiting, right? Let's say T1. And now how many other processes do we give critical section entry besides Pi? Well, one and only one, Pj. Right? One and only one. So we've got that bound. Bound is 1. So it's very easy to see that both progress and bounded waiting conditions will be guaranteed by this Peterson's solution. Right? Both guaranteed by setting flag as false. Okay. So of course, if only Pi is running, Pj is not running, progress is guaranteed. If only Pi runs, Pj does not run, progress is guaranteed. Flag I is true, turn is j. Flag j is false because Pj is not running, it enters critical section, Pi does, gets out. If Pj is running, Pi is not running, again Pj will make progress, no problem at all. There is no contention actually. And even if both Pi and Pj are running at the same time, we ensure both progress and bounded waiting. So a process which is in its remainder section will not be able to block or starve the other process which is waiting to enter its critical section. However, it will set its flag as false. So which means immediately the other process gets to enter its critical section, the one that was waiting. And the bound on the wait is only one process. Pi, when it's waiting to enter its critical section, needs to wait for Pj at max. Only one process. So we can never have a scenario in which Pi keeps on waiting and Pj keeps on running one after the other. That will not happen because as soon as Pj gets out of its critical section, it immediately sets its flag as false and Pi will gain entry. Right? And then once Pi gains entry and then Pj, even if it's running again, because Pi has entry, so that means flag I is true and turn is I. Right? So then naturally Pj has to wait. Okay. So in this way, now we say that all conditions are satisfied. Mutual exclusion condition is satisfied. Only one process will be in its critical section at any point of time. The turn variable ensures that. Progress and bounded waiting both will be satisfied. The flag equal to false will ensure that part. So now in this way we can say that Peterson's solution properly and correctly solves the critical section problem for two processes. Okay. I hope it's clear. And no matter what is the rate of execution, P1 is so quick, it starts and finishes even before Pj can start. It's almost sequential. Or if Pj is so fast, it starts and finishes before Pi can even start. Again, almost sequential. And third scenario is if Pi and Pj are running at the same time. If both are running at the same speed, or if both are running at slightly different speeds. So we see that in all those scenarios, the synchronization is proper and the critical section problem is solved. Mutual exclusion and progress and bounded waiting. Okay. So I hope it's clear. All right.